Hey guys, I'm Naya and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the top 5 decks for the next format. However, I want to make a quick disclaimer. With the ban list hitting tier that much, suddenly a huge array of decks rose up and is able to compete, I think. So right now I could just go on and just discuss some honorable mentions and probably mention like 5 to 10 more decks than just the 5 we're going to be discussing today. So if the deck you feel like is going to be best is not on this list, it's not because I would think it's not bad. It's just I wanted to talk about those 5 in particular today, but I could make a second video talking about, other decks, rogue options, budget options, so you guys can have even more content when it comes to the post-ban list format, because it's still a bit weird to think about how tier was insanely hit. However, it is one of the decks on this list. I think tier is still going to be able to compete. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, I want to mention a couple honorable mentions still. Even though we're talking about some other decks, I wanted to mention Labyrinth, Plunder Patrol. There's other ones as well, but these ones I think are going to be quite high up on the chart, on the scale power level of decks. I think they have a ton of potential, and like I said, there's other ones as well. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below, but today we're going to only talk about the following 5 decks. With the first one, we're going to mention Kashtira. It's obvious, Kashtira wasn't hit, and some people actually said that Fenrir, for example, would maybe have to be hit because it's strong and because we all knew what Kashtira is going to be able to do because of OCG. So yeah, Kashtira, it's able to establish boards that are just very annoying. They're taking away your resources, not only your extra deck, your main deck as well. Diablosis is a hell of a card, and with the Shangri-La being able to lock your zones, with Unicorn, Fenrir maybe being additional disruptions on the field. A Rice Heart's Macrocosmos effect is extremely tough to deal with if your deck needs to utilize the graveyard, as well as some of the tech cards like Shifter. Now, a thing to keep in mind is that maybe the deck might be a bit worse off in a way, and that may sound weird, but it had a good tier matchup, and the D-Shifter was very nice against the deck, for example, but with tier falling off, with that, Kashtira is going to have to sort of adjust to other matchups, if that makes sense, because not everyone is going to be hurt by Shifter in particular. So it's going to be a bit weird. People are going to have to juggle around and just sort of figure out, like, is this card still worth running? Is tier still going to be a thing? And we'll discuss tier a bit later. But yeah, I think Kashtira is going to be very strong still, although it is quite easy to out with some of the side deck cards, or even main deck if you want. So the tech cards just completely annihilate Kashtira at times because they don't have a negate, and it's quite easy to side against them. So once people realize, like, yeah, Kashtira is going to be the deck to beat, which probably they have realized by now, and they are going to tailor their main and side decks accordingly, and it's going to be much easier to counter that deck because it's not insanely overpowered, at least in my opinion. So there's that. The next deck we're going to be mentioning is going to be Branded Bestial. Bestials are still very strong. Bestials have always been strong as just the cards. And the meta, of course, awarded you for like playing Bestials because you're going to be able to compete. And right now, Bestials didn't become worse. They might just be a bit less useful. But if you're playing a deck like Branded, they are still incredibly strong because they're hand traps and they're also part of your engine. And there are still maybe going to be some light and dark decks around, because stuff like Jaichon, for example, like some decks just fell off because Bestials came into the meta, so they might rise up again, and then people might play Bestials even more. So again, it's going to be this weird balance. But overall, the Branded Bestial deck in particular, I think is very strong. It's highly consistent. It's receiving support in Photon Hypernova. It can also utilize Bestials, like I said, so as hand traps, as part of the engine, and makes strong boards. The boards they have a lot of different interruptions, a lot of different types of interaction. So I like that a lot. There's back row, there's a lot of stuff on the board right now with the support as well. Mirror Jade is still so hard to out if you can't really get rid of it in a way where it doesn't trigger. And yeah, I think it is going to be a very strong deck moving forward. It has been quite explored to the point where people sort of know how to counter it. But I still think with the support and all of that, I think it's going to be able to to do a lot. And the next deck I wanted to discuss, Sorzo. Sorzo is really interesting because it felt like it sort of fell off, and it did, but then it sort of started to creep back, and just stayed in the format because it's much easier to counter tier if you're able to banish their cards. So with the Sorzo Synchro, you would banish them, and then you would quite easily be able to establish an OTK because it's just what Sorzo does, and it also really rewards skillful gameplay, or the way you see the line of being able to OTK, seal off the game quickly, or establish a board accordingly. But it's like, Sorzo is really one of those decks that rewards you for being good with it. So I like that a lot about Sorzo. It also has a ton of space for tech cards. So when you're going to be able to tell which decks are going to be the best, you can just easily put in many cards to counter them. If that's hand traps or power spells, it doesn't really matter, but you're going to be able to go up against the meta because you're going second is not that tough. And also with the shufflers almost completely being gone, the Ishizu cards and Bishios sort of going down in, I guess, popularity, the Tanias are going to put in more work for you because before it wasn't that bad. But Bishio, or a shuffler getting rid of Ashuna or Vishuda, for example, it just wasn't great. And right now I think that's going to do a lot for Sorzo. And I do think it is going to be one of the top decks moving forward, which is nice to see because the deck sort of fell off completely once the meta sort of shifted to the POT format. But yeah, I guess it's back. So there's that when it comes to Sorzo. And as the last two decks, of course, we're going to be discussing Tearlament and Sprite as well. I still think they're going to be able to play. They have a ton of potential, but let's go slowly. First off, with Tearlaments, there is going to be a lot of experimentation with the deck. There's a ton of things you're able to play in there, but it lost a lot when it comes to consistency and consistency in your mills as well, because it's going to become weird. If you go for a Tearlament fusion and you put the cards on the bottom of the deck, for a fact they're not going to be at the top for you to be able to mill your names. So you're going to have to find a way to shuffle your deck, and that's a lot of hoops to jump through. So I think limiting all of these cards, that was a really smart move on their part. It hurt the deck a lot, but like I said, there are some things you can play with it, and those things are, for example, I talked about in one of my previous videos, King of the Swamp, because it is a substitution for a name, so you're able to go into Rolkalos and not use Kit Kalos. You're able to go into the Grapha fusion, and King of the Swamp substitutes as the name, and it's also able to search Polymerization, which then you can use to summon Guardian Chimera. So you are able to add some additional fusions to your extra deck, and it's not so bad. So there's that engine. There's also the Shadow stuff, which I also mentioned in the video of the cards you should probably be picking up. I think Winda is very strong on the end board. With the Shadow Beast and Squamata, you're also putting, Shadow monsters in the main deck that actually do something when they're sent to the graveyard. So help you, Beast gets to draw, which is not bad. Squamata sends, and then you get the Winda. So I think that engine is nice also because with Shadow Fusion, you're able to send either tier names for a Dark Fusion or Ishizu cards for the Earth Shekinaga. So you're also able to plus off of that. So I think that engine is cool. And then there's also the Chap card Trivikarma, which is able to search you the field spell because it mentions Visa Starfrost. And I think at least maybe something that should be tested is Foolish Burial Goods, because if you go for Trivikarma, you can also just use goods for something like Solik or, whatever you may need in that situation. So it might be a card worth running to consistently get to your trap cards that trigger in the graveyard to get you engine. Then the 3 Scream might be mandatory because you want to get to your trap cards, since now you're not able to search them anymore with Kit Kalos and just choose what you may want to get from your deck. So right now with 3 Scream, you almost make sure that you're able to end on a trap card. There's also the Mikanko engine, which I think is really, really cool. So the Mikanko basically not only is the level 6 body, so you can actually use it for BHS plays, for example, it just basically gets you to a disruption by itself, which is really, really nice. And I think it's a cool engine to put in the deck. It's only 3 cards. It's not bad. And like I said, the card is very strong, and its level is also really nice. And the level gets paired together with the Diviner's level because Diviner of the Herald also is seeing play. You're able to send the Herald to get the Mikanko, or you can send Ishizu cards and just plus off of them. So yeah, Diviner of the Herald is seeing play. So with the tier deck, I think the cards themselves are very, very strong. That's a fact. So if you are able to get your plays going and sort of bridge from one engine to the other, I think the deck is going to be a very strong contender. There is a lot of testing that's going to have to go into that, I think, from the entire community pretty much. So yeah, like it's weird because tier is going to have to be paired up with something else, and we just need to realize what that is. But those are just a couple options for you. And now when it comes to Sprite, Sprite also has a ton of engines that are able to see play together with it because Elf hurt a lot. But when you think about turns where you would get Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, and you just play, and the combos get a bit weird, but you're still able to play through it in a way and at least do something. So right now, that's sort of the case. It's sort of the situation we're in. So what are the combos that do not feature Elf? So one thing you can add is the Gishki engine from Photon Hypernova. It received support, and if you put in the Gishki engine, I think it's not bad. You're able to get to a negate. However, Elf managed to help a lot in that because it would revive back the Abyss, so you're able to continue searching and do multiple searches. And right now with no Elf, the combos get sort of more awkward. And if you want to check out my video I did with Nash talking about the deck, and we actually built it from scratch, you can check that out and sort of get an idea of what the deck is able to accomplish and sort of how it plays and what it does. We talk about all of that when building the deck. So it's interesting. It has some flaws, and I guess we'll just see how many people gravitate towards that build. But another thing you can pair together is Tri-Brigade. However, in the OCG, that's what we saw, and it utilized Elf as well. So Elf being able to revive the level 2 Tri-Brigades is just nice. You know, you're able to use them on the field, and it just works as this mashup of both engines. But right now with no Elf, combos are a bit different. You're still able to establish some boards if you get like, you know, a Tri-Brigade normal summon and then like a starter or something. You're able to play. However, I think that the better version would be Tri-Brigade Lyrilusc because the boards are almost the same, but the Lyrilusc version is a bit makes a bit stronger board. So if you're trying to do that kind of thing, I guess just go for the Tri-Brigade Lyrilusc deck and maybe leave Sprite because it's not that great, at least in my opinion, looking at it right now. But that might change after a bit more testing. And Sprite also has a ton of space to play tech cards. So that really makes it great because it has like combos of one card or two cards. So then you're able to fit a lot of tech cards in your deck as well. So there's that, which is great. You're able to adjust to the format. Another engine I wanted to talk about, and that one I particularly liked, is the Cyber's Gadget stuff. So Cyber's Gadget and Silent Mining together, Silent Mining searches it, which is great. And this card can also be Angler. So you play 3 Angler to make sure that you maximize your discard, being something great. And with Angler triggering, you get a ton of pluses off of just 1 mining. And the Cyber's Gadget basically revives a level 2 if you want. But also the other effect, it makes a token, which is also a level 2. So the card itself is really strong. Angler does a lot, and also you play 3 swap, so you're able to pitch Angler for that as well. And you again maximize your options of seeing that combo of 1 swap and one Angler together. So then that makes a swap into an extender in a way because you don't need to commit to your normal summon by special summoning it, so you're able to play through more things. And it's like, I like it a lot. I think that version is really strong. But again, we are going to have to test a lot, test all of these engines, and just see what works and what doesn't. There is also the Runic engine, and Runic Sprite is nice, but Elf did a lot because slowly with it surviving, you're able to establish some kind of advantage. You're able to draw a ton of cards and just, slow the game down, but still be able to play, especially because you don't have a battle phase, so it's a bit weirder. So that version is also something to think about. And another monster I wanted to mention is the Bujinki Ahashima, which started to see play with people testing that deck, which is basically, I think it's really nice. So it's able to Xyz summon into Toad with its effect because it would revive, and because it was special summon 2 same level monsters, 1 from your grave, 1 from your hand. So you will go swap effect, send swap effect, bounce swap, and then the Bujinki effect, summon 1 swap from the hand, 1 swap from the grave, and immediately make Toad. I think it's a very clean play and I like it a lot. So the Bujinki it's linked too, so you're easily able to go into it in your combos. So yeah, I think that's something to look into. I think the monster is very strong. And there is a lot of things to think about and try out. So I would leave it up to you guys to also let me know in the comments if you tried any of these versions or decks, or what do you think are going to be the best ones moving forward. But that's going to be it for me for today. Again, there's a ton of decks that are going to be able to compete, and I really can't wait to see what the format evolves into. And of course, if you like this video, please like it, sub to the channel, check out all the social media, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.